The first crack of daylight hadn't yet broken through the dense suburban morning when Marcus Reyes heard them. Rhythmic thuds echoed through the specially reinforced walls of his underground tunnel, a project 5 years in the making, meticulously engineered and fiercely protected. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Marcus pressed his ear against the cool concrete wall, his heart racing. The sounds weren't natural. These weren't the occasional settling noises of an underground passage or the subtle shifts of earth. These were deliberate, methodical, invasive. He had always known the Oak Ridge Estates Homeowners Association was problematic, but this was a violation beyond anything he could have imagined. The tunnel had been more than just a personal project for Marcus. It was a sanctuary, a testament to his engineering brilliance and a deeply personal space that represented years of strategic planning and silent rebellion against the suffocating conformity of suburban life. When he first purchased the property 3 years ago, the HOA had immediately tried to control every aspect of his home's exterior: the color of his shutters, the type of grass in his lawn, even the height of his decorative garden features. But they couldn't see what lay beneath the ground. They couldn't regulate what they didn't know existed. Marcus had spent countless nights designing this tunnel. By day, he worked as a senior structural engineer for a prestigious firm in downtown Atlanta. By night, he became an underground architect, crafting a passageway that was part technical marvel, part personal statement of independence. The tunnel ran precisely 237 feet from his basement, reinforced with custom-designed carbon fiber supports and equipped with a ventilation system that would make most military bunkers look primitive. Now someone was breaching that sacred space. The drilling sounds grew more intense. Marcus could feel vibrations traveling through the wall, tiny tremors that spoke of industrial-grade equipment, not the kind of tools a typical construction crew would casually bring to a residential site. These were precision instruments designed to cut through even the most resilient materials. He moved silently through his home, each step calculated. The early morning light filtered through custom-tinted windows, casting soft shadows across polished hardwood floors. Everything looked normal, too normal. His smartphone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Routine infrastructure inspection. Oak Ridge Estates HOA. Marcus's fingers clenched around the phone. Routine? There was nothing routine about unauthorized drilling beneath a private property. His mind raced through potential legal implications, technical violations, property rights. As an engineer, he knew every millimeter of his underground creation. He knew its exact specifications, its structural integrity, and most importantly, he knew it was entirely legal. Or at least it should have been. The HOA had a history of overreach. Just last year, they had tried to force him to remove a solar panel installation that was meticulously designed to be both aesthetically pleasing and highly efficient. They claimed it disrupted the neighborhood's visual harmony. Marcus had fought that battle in court and won, but the victory had been more about principle than the actual solar panels. Now they were underground, literally and metaphorically crossing a line. Another vibration. Closer this time. Whatever was drilling was getting near the tunnel's eastern wall. The section he had most carefully designed, the section that contained his most sensitive equipment and personal research. Marcus walked to his home office, a space that looked like a cross between a high-tech command center and a traditional engineering workspace. Blueprints, technical drawings, and sophisticated monitoring equipment covered every available surface. His fingers moved across a specialized touchscreen, pulling up the tunnel's internal monitoring system. What he saw made his blood run cold. Multiple breach points, precise, calculated. This wasn't just an inspection. This was an invasion. The HOA wasn't just crossing a line. They were obliterating it. And Marcus Reyes was about to show them exactly what happened when you underestimated an engineer who valued his privacy more than anything else in the world. The Oak Ridge Estates Community Center buzzed with nervous energy when Marcus walked in, a meticulously prepared legal folder tucked under his arm. Karen Whitmore, the HOA president, sat at the head of a long oak table, her perfectly pressed blazer a stark contrast to the tension radiating from her steely gaze. "Mr. Reyes," she began, her voice a calculated blend of professional courtesy and underlying threat, "we need to discuss the recent infrastructure assessment of your property." Marcus knew this wasn't going to be a conversation. It was going to be a confrontation. He spread his documents across the table: property surveys, underground utility maps, and comprehensive geological reports that he had personally commissioned. Each page was a meticulously crafted shield against their potential accusations. "I'm quite certain," Marcus said, his engineering precision evident in every word, "that you have no legal authority to conduct subsurface investigations without explicit court-ordered permission or my consent." Karen's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Reyes, there are concerns about potential structural risks to neighboring properties. Our engineers have identified anomalies that require immediate investigation." But Marcus had anticipated this move. He knew the HOA's tactics. They would create a narrative of potential danger, hoping to strong-arm him into compliance. Each document he had brought told a different story. A story of absolute compliance, of engineering excellence that exceeded every possible regulatory requirement. What they didn't know was that Marcus had been preparing for this confrontation for years. The meeting deteriorated quickly. Legal jargon was exchanged like calculated weapon strikes. Marcus produced evidence of the tunnel's structural integrity, its compliance with every possible building code, and the absolute privacy of his underground project. Karen and her team grew increasingly frustrated, their initial confidence eroding with each technical detail Marcus presented. But something felt off. Even as he methodically dismantled their arguments, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely a preliminary skirmish. The HOA wanted something more than just accessing his property. Their determination seemed almost personal. By the time the meeting concluded, Marcus had effectively checkmated their immediate legal maneuvers. Karen's final words, delivered with a cold smile, sent a chill down his spine. "This isn't over, Mr. Reyes." He knew it wasn't. Driving home, Marcus's mind raced. The tunnel's monitoring systems continued to show irregular activities. Something was happening beneath the surface, literally and metaphorically. His carefully constructed underground sanctuary was under threat, and the HOA's actions suggested a level of desperation that went far beyond typical bureaucratic overreach. As he pulled into his meticulously maintained driveway, he noticed something immediately wrong. Subtle marks in the perfectly manicured lawn. Slight depressions that shouldn't exist. Microscopic evidence of recent ground disturbance. They had been here, recently, and they weren't done. Marcus's engineering mind began to piece together a puzzle. The HOA's sudden interest, the precision of their underground probing, the calculated legal approach. This wasn't about a routine inspection or potential structural risks. This was about something hidden, something they desperately wanted to find. And he was going to find out exactly what that something was before they could. The night was Marcus's ally. While suburban streetlights cast their artificial glow, he worked silently in his underground control room, a technological fortress hidden beneath layers of concrete and advanced security systems. Multiple monitors flickered with data streams, thermal imaging, and underground radar readings that most military installations would envy. Something wasn't adding up. He had discovered encrypted communication logs on a backup drive, fragments of emails and encrypted messages that suggested the HOA's interest in his property went far beyond typical neighborhood control. One partially recovered message caught his attention. Project Meridian requires complete access. Neutralize potential interference. Project Meridian. The name meant nothing to him initially, but years of engineering had taught Marcus that nothing was truly random. Every piece of data was a puzzle waiting to be solved. His contact at the city planning office, Elena Rodriguez, had been unusually nervous when he called earlier that week. "Be careful, Marcus," she whispered, her usually confident voice trembling. "Some things aren't meant to be discovered." Now, surrounded by his monitoring equipment, Marcus began to connect the dots. The tunnel wasn't just a personal engineering project. It had become something more, a potential threat to whoever was orchestrating Project Meridian. A sudden alert flashed on his primary monitoring screen. Seismic sensors detected movement, not the typical ground settling or minor underground shifts. This was deliberate, calculated. Someone was tunnelling again, and they were getting closer. Marcus pulled up the thermal imaging. 3 distinct heat signatures moved through the ground, approaching the eastern section of his tunnel, the section he had most carefully protected. Professional movements, coordinated, military-grade precision. They were coming. He had 2 choices: retreat and protect himself, or stand his ground and discover what they were so desperately trying to hide. The HOA had made this personal. They had invaded his space, threatened his privacy, and now they were literally trying to tunnel into his most protected area. Marcus Reyes was an engineer. Precision was his language. Strategy, his native tongue. If they wanted a war underground, he would give them a war they would never forget. His fingers flew across specialized communication equipment, activating a series of contingency protocols he had designed years ago. Fail-safes that would make any invasion not just difficult, but potentially catastrophic for those attempting to breach his domain. The tunnel was more than just a passage. It was a fortress, a statement. And now it would become a battlefield. As the underground intruders drew closer, Marcus smiled. They thought they knew engineering. They thought they understood strategy. But they had no idea who they were dealing with. Project Meridian was about to meet its most unexpected obstacle. The tunnel's defense systems began to hum, a low, almost imperceptible vibration that spoke of technological complexity far beyond typical underground construction. Marcus adjusted his tactical headset, watching the thermal signatures approach. Let them come, he thought. Let them try. Water was both a weapon and an architect of destruction, and Marcus understood its power better than most. The first signs of breach came at precisely 2:37 a.m. Micro vibrations registered on his advanced monitoring system, confirming what he had anticipated. The intruders had finally broken through the eastern tunnel wall. Marcus had been waiting, every system primed, every contingency calculated with the precision of a master engineer. His specialized pumping system was unlike anything typically found in residential or even industrial settings. Designed to move massive volumes of water with surgical accuracy, it represented the pinnacle of hydraulic engineering. What looked like ordinary water pipes were actually a complex network of high-pressure conduits capable of transforming a controlled environment into a controlled catastrophe. Marcus watched the thermal imaging with cold calculation. 3 heat signatures, professional infiltrators wearing thermal suits, carrying specialized equipment. They moved with military-like coordination, clearly expecting to find something specific in his underground complex. Project Meridian was more than a mystery now. It was an active threat. The moment the first intruder's thermal signature crossed the predetermined breach point, Marcus initiated the flood sequence. It wasn't just about water. It was about creating a hydrodynamic environment that would render their invasion impossible. High-pressure water jets erupted from strategically placed ports along the tunnel walls. These weren't ordinary water streams, they were precision-engineered hydraulic channels designed to create maximum disorientation and minimal physical harm. The water moved with calculated intelligence, filling spaces, creating pressure differentials that would disorient and trap the intruders. Specialized sensors tracked their movements. One intruder attempted to activate what looked like a communication device. Another tried to deploy what Marcus's thermal imaging suggested was some form of cutting equipment. Futile efforts against a system designed to neutralize technological interventions. The water wasn't just a barrier. It was a computational environment. Embedded within the water were microscopic conductive particles that disrupted electronic signals. Any communication devices, any tracking mechanisms would be instantly rendered useless. The intruders were now effectively blind, deaf, and increasingly immobilized. Marcus knew exactly how much water pressure to apply, how to create currents that would prevent easy movement, how to transform the tunnel from a penetrable space to an impossible environment. Project Meridian had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated Marcus Reyes. His computer screens displayed real-time data, water volume, pressure differentials, thermal signatures growing increasingly clustered and confused. They were trapped, not drowned, but completely neutralized. A final encrypted message flickered briefly on one of his monitoring screens before being systematically erased. Extraction protocol compromised. Repeat, extraction protocol compromised. Marcus allowed himself the slightest smile. They had come to invade his space, to uncover something they believed was hidden. Instead, they had discovered the true meaning of engineered resistance. The tunnel was no longer just a personal project. It was a fortress, a statement, a warning.